whatever you wind up doing is exactly what you should be doing.
And I have not behaved one single day of my life. Not one day of my life have I behaved, and I am fine.
I need your help. I can't tell you what it is. You can never ask me about it later, and we're gonna hurt some people.
Whose car are we gonna take?
Good afternoon. Happy day after election day. Anybody stay up late? Maybe having a few too many cocktails, watching some of these returns. I will say this, and we're going to get into the politics. Thank you for everyone that's moved over from Mark Thompson's show, because it's a day of what do we know and what don't we know. And we will have Emily Hoeven with CalMatters back on the show. We love her analysis. She'll take a look at some of the California races. Obviously, Governor Newsom won easily against Brian Dahle, but there were some surprises, at least to me. But first off, we do want to say thank you to our exclusive founding sponsor, Steve Moskowitz, who will be joining us shortly. Of course, you can give him a call for all your tax needs at 888 Tax Deal or MoskowitzLLP.com, or as I like to sing, MoskowitzzLLP.com. Of course, the live chat is going. The super chat is up. Thank you to everyone that has already begun to donate. I'll be giving some shout outs in just a moment. If you want your comment read by me, if there's a specific question that you want to ask during the show, it will be pinned to the top. There's super stickers. There's super thanks now. Also want to say welcome. I'm trying something new. Even though I love when people come directly to YouTube to watch my channel, I believe that we are also live for the very first day on Facebook. So I know a lot of people are on Facebook and maybe don't want to do a lot of clicking. So welcome to the show. Of course, the link to the YouTube is also there. And there's many ways to support the show. You could do it in live chat, which every single day people throw in some dollars, throw in the chat, and that helps us keep literally the lights on, because this is my only job right now. You can also go to my website, the NikkiMedoroShow.com. That's the NikkiMedoroShow.com. And you'll find links to the YouTube channel. Some of our past shows are up there. Share them, please, with your family and friends, because we love to grow the show. And then also, if you want to become a Patreon subscriber, which so many of you have, and you send awesome messages of encouragement to myself and to Kim. And so we're really just at the infancy with this show, but we really want to continue to grow it. On that note, I did receive an email, or maybe it was in the chat. Was it in the chat? I think it might have been. Yes, Andreas. So let me give a shout out to Andreas, who's been like a daily huge supporter for the show. Andreas, $50 in the live chat. I mean, I don't think I can convey how awesome you are, and all of you are, for your support. But then, Andreas, you put this in the comment really early before the show even started. So you're like planting ideas in my head, maybe premature. Are you planning a get together for your followers for Christmas? Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. I mean, this is just the show, but maybe some ideas, throw them out. I live down in the South Bay, so maybe along the peninsula, maybe, we can meet somewhere for drinks, or I don't know. I'll brainstorm a little bit. And how about you as well? And send me any sort of your ideas. So we're definitely going to do that. We'll be getting into not just the California races, but of course, we'll be looking across the country. I think the first response I had when the results started coming in was, of course, JD Vance winning. And I just couldn't freaking believe it. Now, he, of course, was in Ohio. And some people are like, forget about Ohio. And that's going to be a question throughout the show today is, did this election show us which states just you have to stop trying to convince people? I mean, Florida alone, the Hispanic vote that came out strong in Florida, is it no longer a swing state? Should we stop trying to consider it that? And then DeSantis, we're also going to get into Trump. I think I saw one post, I believe it was on Twitter, and it was announcing, that Ron DeSantis had handedly won in Florida. And there wasn't much cheering happening at Mar-a-Lago because obviously they were having some sort of election night party there. And what is this going to mean? So on next Tuesday, Trump is supposed to make some big announcement, which I am going to assume is whether or not he's going to run for president. And maybe he will, maybe he won't. And what do you think? Do you want him to run because it would dilute the vote, right? The Republican vote. I mean, how many would go because DeSantis is going to run? I mean, there's just, in my mind, there's no question that he's going to run. So would it dilute the Republican vote, giving Biden or I guess whoever it chooses to run for the Democratic Party for president, whether it's Kamala Harris or goodness, somebody else? I mean, do we welcome Trump jumping into the race? Because whether or not the shine has kind of come off him, a lot of the people that he endorsed didn't win. Election deniers did not have a great night, with governors and attorneys general and things like that. So is the shine off Trump enough? Or even if the shine is off, will he suck so much air out of the room that it hurts DeSantis? So not quite sure what I'm hoping happens, I'll be honest. Because if he doesn't jump into the race and he does throw his support behind DeSantis, Biden's going to have a tough fight on his hands. He really is, because I know Republicans, for some reason, happen to love DeSantis, and it makes no sense to me whatsoever. It just doesn't. Also want to let you know before we kind of go on, click that thumbs up button. Help support the show on YouTube. So here's some of the sound that I was playing to remind all of you what to do.
Come on, push the button.
We should just smash them.
Smash!
Smash.
Smash! Smash!
Yeah. So just click that thumbs up button. It helps us with the AI on YouTube and helps us out. But let's talk about California. Now, obviously, some races have been close. My neck of the woods in San Jose, we still don't know who's winning for mayor, although Matt Mahan at last check was ahead of Supervisor Cindy Chavez. So we'll get to those results. But we also want to take a look at the statewide races. Governor's done. I mean, that was an easy call. But what about the rest of the races? Proposition 30, that kind of surprised me. So let's bring in Emily Hoeven with CalMatters, and as she covers, obviously, California politics. Emily, thanks so much for coming back on.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Nikki.
Okay, great. So CalMatters does an amazing job, calmatters.org. I've been following around throughout the evening and, of course, today, looking at some of the results. So let's get to it. Now, there were some races that might have been, easily won. I was mentioning the governor's race. What other races in California either seem to be too close or, I guess, in your opinion, seem to be a surprise?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Proposition 30, and I think that was also the one that surprised me the most. I actually thought it was going to be a lot closer than it was. And this was the ballot measure to levy a new tax on millionaires to fund electric vehicle rebate programs and other climate initiatives like fighting wildfires. It had been kind of the most interesting and controversial one. On the one hand, it was opposed by Governor Gavin Newsom and the Republican Party, which is a coalition you don't often see joining forces. And then it was supported by Democrats and environmental groups, labor groups. And, some polls came out last week sort of showing that it was pretty close. And I kind of thought it could go either way, wouldn't be called on election night. And it turns out it failed pretty resoundingly. So that was, for me, honestly, one of the most surprising takeaways.
Well, let me stop you right there. What do you think it was with Prop 30? I mean, is it seriously just Gavin Newsom speaking out against it and the power that he has and the influence he has? Because I was reading the proposition. I was saying it's California. We want the charging stations. We're an environmental state. The Democratic Party was behind it. Yeah, I know Lyft could benefit, but okay. And it was only a tax levied on really wealthy people. So it wasn't really going to hurt kind of middle income Californians. What do you think really pushed so many people to a no?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I definitely think part of it was the governor. But I also do think that California politically sometimes does surprising things. And we have to remember that California is also home to one of the nation's most enduring tax revolts. That started with Proposition 13, in the 70s to cap property taxes. And voters have time and time again rejected attempts to change that. Just in 2020, there were some measures that would have amended that to, tax big businesses, and they emphasized big ones, not small ones, to give more money to local governments and schools. Voters said no. This as well. It was only on the top earners in California, but I think voters were still a little hesitant, and I think that's part of just this overall economic vibe that we're feeling. With all of these news of layoffs and inflation being high, people feeling that uncertainty. I think that might have been enough, combined with the governor's really aggressive campaign against this, to just not allow it to win.
Yeah, I mean, it did surprise me. And full disclosure, I did vote for it. I mean, I thought, if it's going to move us towards electric vehicle goals, that it could help. But it went down, and we were kind of a split house on that proposition. So my husband and I disagreed. What about the controller's race? Because I know a lot of people were looking at this like, could a Republican actually win a statewide office?
Yes, they were. And I think the tentative answer that we're looking at right now is no, they cannot. This is the one statewide race that has not yet been called. Democrats swept all the other ones pretty easily. Lan Hee-chen, the Republican candidate in the controller's race, has not yet conceded, even though his Democratic opponent, Malia Cohen, has already declared victory. And I think what's really interesting for California is, Lan Hee-chen was a moderate Republican. He says that he did not vote for Trump, that he supports abortion rights. He works at Stanford. He's worked on both sides of the political aisle. He was sort of seen as maybe the ideal Republican candidate in California. But I just think that R next to a candidate's name in California, it's kind of a death knell. And right now he's trailing with double digits. And so I think that it really does raise a question for the GOP in California. For statewide office, you need to totally revamp your strategy or find new candidates or something, because whatever you're doing for the past 2 decades, it hasn't been working.
Yeah. And honestly, it doesn't sit well with me that even with something like this, obviously dealing with the finances, it's not like you're the state attorney general or something like that. And just because of that I think you're absolutely correct. People just vote down ballot. And I don't know if that's serving us as Californians necessarily. I mean, it's not as if Democrats are always correct in how they want to do something. But obviously, this was not Chan's year, I guess.
I also think, that's an interesting point, because I do think that if Californians were going to vote for a Republican, it might have been in this office, just because fiscal issues. And that's how Lan Hee-chen was pitching himself. He basically was saying, I'm going to just make sure the Democrats are spending your money wisely. And I think a lot of people look around, they see the money spent on homelessness, and they don't necessarily think it's being spent effectively. But that Republican label, something about it just turns a lot of voters off.
Yeah. Now, COVID kind of weaved its way into not just, local races, school boards and things like that, but I was really interested in the Tony Thurmond race because of so many parents being upset about school closures and how long it took, but he seems to have won.
Yeah, Tony Thurmond is kind of an interesting case. In some ways, I think voters expressed their dissatisfaction with him in the primary, because that is the one race. It's officially a nonpartisan race. And so technically, if Thurmond had won more than 50% of the vote in the primary, he wouldn't have even had to go to the general election here yesterday. But he didn't get that. He didn't cross that barrier. And so he was forced to mount some level of campaign for the general election. He did eke out a win. And, he has been telling reporters, I've heard the criticism loud and clear, and I'm going to try to address that in my next term. But we have seen a lot of Democrats that are, I would say, have had difficult terms be reelected. I mean, for insurance commissioner as well, Ricardo Lara has basically been plagued by scandals. He received no endorsements. In fact, some endorsements actually from editorial boards basically said he's the lesser of 2 evils, which is not necessarily a vote of confidence.
It's not what you want to hear, no.
Yeah. But yeah, they're winning, and they will sail to another term.
Yeah, I mean, Fiona Ma also had her own kind of scandal going on in the background, and yet that D next to your name will always override for obviously so many California voters any sort of other ideas. Finally, what about control of Congress? I mean, can it really come down to the state of California? Because you talk about these other swing states, California doesn't seem like it could be, but possibly.
Yeah, it's funny because like statewide, the Republicans, they have basically no power for those statewide offices, but in Congress, it's a little bit of a different story. And, it still is too close and it's too early to tell exactly what's going to happen. But I'm definitely watching some of those congressional races down in Southern California, especially around Orange County. Right now, for example, the Katie Porter Scott Bow race is very close. And I think it may come down to the wire. And if all the current trends hold, it very well could come down to a couple of those seats in California that determine whether the GOP or Democrats control Congress. So it's going to be very fascinating. I'm sure a lot of campaign managers right now are biting their nails off, as we count those ballots and see what the turnout is.
And so the Katie Porter race is still close. I hadn't checked on that one yet.
Last I saw, it was about 50-49.
In her favor?
Yes, in Katie Porter's favor. But we had Governor Newsom go down in campaign, President Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, AOC. They were all going down to rally the troops for her. But she's in a new district than she was before, and this one is significantly more. There's more Republican voters in it than in her prior district. So people were saying it was going to be a close race, and it's just crazy when you watch the ballots come in. It'll go one way and then the other, and everyone's tweeting and talking about it. And it's like, hey, we may not know for weeks, so everyone needs to just wait and see what happens. But it's very high octane, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And as someone who covers politics, Emily, let me just ask you this one final question. The polling. I mean, is it just time? And this is obviously anecdotal because there's so many polls out there and they're performed so many different ways. I mean, is it time to just stop with the polls because they don't seem to be very accurate all the time?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it reminds me of this meme I kept seeing on Twitter for Halloween where someone had carved this scary jack-o'-lantern that said, the polls are all wrong. And I think it's one of these things that it seems to me, at least increasingly in recent years, voters maybe just aren't telling pollsters what they actually think or what they're actually going to do. Even in the LA mayor's race, it seemed like Karen Bass was going to be way ahead. Caruso was closing in recent polls, but right now he's ahead of her. And so it's hard to know. But I personally kind of think that voters always are going to surprise you, and you have to really be on your toes and take nothing for granted and assume nothing. And that makes all of our jobs harder, but it does also make it, more exciting and interesting. And voters, they're being pulled in a lot of different directions. And so it's interesting to just kind of see how it all plays out.
Absolutely. Emily Hoeven with CalMatters. Go to her articles. I'll link them to my social media feeds, calmatters.org. Emily, we'll have you back on real soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nikki.
All right. Have a good one. Yeah, she works her butt off. And let's welcome Kim McAllister to the show. So, Kim, how are you feeling this day after Election Day?
I'm a little surprised that I guess I have great faith in the voters of the United States. And I'm surprised that some of these races that even though the polls said they were close, I thought people were going to step up and say, you know what, Herschel Walker, come on, you guys, and we're down to a runoff election for Warnock and Walker. I thought in Nevada, the Senate race was going to be a runaway for the Democrats, and it wasn't. Castro Masto, I believe is her name. And I thought for sure that she was an easy win, and that one's not looking too good. So, and even with the Los Angeles mayor's race, I feel like it's closer than it really ought to be. So there were some surprises for me, but overall, I guess it's not horrible.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it definitely wasn't. I was seeing this and I had posted it on my social media feeds because I think this is really the point. If anyone's feeling, pessimistic, of course, is this whole red wave. Looks like the red wave is actually just a ketchup smear at Mar-a-Lago. That was cracking me up this morning because, and we'll touch on this also this afternoon, Republicans were selling this narrative about a red wave. I think Don Jr. tweeted out way too early because it bit him in the ass. Bloodbath. And it's like, not really a bloodbath. I mean, usually the party that's not in power does a lot better. And what's also encouraging, Kim, if this gives you any comfort, is a lot of election deniers that were going for the governorships and state attorneys general didn't win. A number of Trump endorsed candidates didn't win.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of history actually made. So this was Rachel Maddow. And I was cracking up because this is, we're getting older, Kim. We just really are. So here is Rachel Maddow, and this was last night as they're getting in the returns, talking about one particular
One
race.
interesting House race to tell you about in Florida's 10th district. We're highlighting this race because Maxwell Frost is the projected winner here. He's the Democrat in this race. He's 25 years old. He is the first representative of Gen Z to be elected to the United States Congress. He is 25, which means he was born in 1997, which I think is mathematically impossible.
It is.
Actually, literally. It's not,
You did not do that math right. I think you messed
I didn't
it
do
up.
that math right.
No.
No, but
81.
You did great.
I literally
You did. I'm joking.
I literally have liquor older than him. It doesn't go back.
So yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those moments where you're looking at some of these candidates, but I'm encouraged by it. I mean, we need the next generation to step up. They are impacted by issues in a different way than I would say the larger block of likely voters, which are older voters, have gone through. I mean, older voters, yes, I mean, we can talk about the recession and for some, I mean, the depression, but the school shootings, the climate change impact, all of these things, going through the Great Recession, going through the tech bubble bust, the housing bust, all of these things really impact younger voters in a way that I don't think older voters can fully grasp. When you're retired or heading towards retirement, your focus is on certain things that are different than someone in their 20s and 30s who have a lot of life ahead of them. And there's a big question of whether or not their government is actually working for them.
Well, and here's a guy who's going to jump in and say, you know what, here is my younger voice. And here, here's what I can bring to the table. Nice to have somebody that, is younger, that wants to be involved and wants to get in there and do it.
Okay, so let's go over some surprising races.
Even if we completely disagree on everything.
Oh, exactly. Well, that's a given.
Yeah.
So here in San Jose, we're not quite sure who's going to be the mayor, but it's not, I mean, at this point, it's not looking like Cindy Chavez. It's kind of nuts. So right now I'm looking at the latest results. Let me just refresh it one more time. So Matt Mahan was up against Cindy Chavez. So he was just put on the city council, 2 years ago? So with, let's see, what's the percent of votes in? They're not giving me the percentage right now, but he is up about 52% to 48%. And so that's going to be a very close race to watch. And I don't know how I feel. We were a split house. Now that I voted, I could say I voted for Cindy Chavez and my husband voted for Matt Mahan. So we were kind of a split house there. How did your election night filling out the ballots go with your husband?
I got to say, I'm surprised about the Cindy Chavez situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to, before I get into the dispute that we had at the kitchen table, I would like to know what do you think people didn't like about Chavez? I mean, here's a woman coming in with a lot of experience and she's ready to lead. And it was, what do you think people saw in her where they're like, no, thank you?
I think that it was, and I think this might be true in races around the country, where it's not so much I don't like you, it's just that you've been around and I want change. The status quo, not anything, and I can only speak for myself and obviously for my husband, but I think the status quo is what people wanted to shake up, but not in the same way like a Trump shakeup. Just, we need new, bold ideas. It's not as if Matt Mahan isn't part of the city council, so he is. He's already been elected to at least represent a portion of the city. And again, and I said this before, it's not as if I actually disagreed with a lot of what Matt Mahan said he wanted to do. I was going for experience. I like not the status quo. But we had a strong woman who has been around, has worked with officials, has kind of worked within the city of San Jose machine and knows how it works. And so I was leaning on that experience for my vote. And, others were saying, you know what? I want more accountability. I want to tackle some of these issues a different way. Matt Mahan, he went to Bellarmine. He had to take the bus or something I think he was down in the Hollister area. I think he was coming from, maybe even farther than that, just to go to school. So he kind of had this story behind him that may have resonated, and obviously has resonated with a lot of people that live in San Jose. So we'll see. It's not looking good. I mean, I was like on Twitter following some of the parties and everything, and you could definitely tell that Cindy Chavez's tone was a bit down. It has not necessarily been called, but the votes seem to be going Mahan's way.
No, last night he was only 3 percentage points ahead of Chavez, and it looks like they're going to release the next batch of results by 5 this evening. So we should have another update as far as who's ahead and what the current vote tally looks later on today.
Yeah.
The fight at my house, the kitchen table fight, we sit together at the kitchen table and do our ballots and kind of, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And sometimes the votes don't end up the same way. Sometimes they do.
Right.
The surprising dispute came over whether or not to ban weird flavors that
Flavored
attract
tobacco?
children of tobacco.
Okay. So how did you vote?
Okay, so I think anything that could possibly attract children to something bad, go ahead and vote yes, ban the tobacco flavors. Why would I want that around in the state, right?
Okay.
We know that tobacco producers try to attract children, get them addicted young, and keep them there. We know that that's the case. So why would I want them even here in California? My husband, on the other hand, said, and by the way, neither of us have smoked a day in our life.
Okay.
He says, if I want to go out and buy cotton candy flavored tobacco, I should be able to do it. He said, why aren't you putting money into enforcing the current laws, which don't allow kids to buy cigarettes and tobacco,
like
instead
fines and
of banning them? He said, because people could bring them in from other states, they just can't sell them in California. So why don't you enforce instead of put new, what he calls nanny government laws in place?
You're frustrated, huh?
I was frustrated. I was frustrated with him because to me, it's like, sure, increase enforcement, but you know what else? Ban them too. Why don't you just throw everything you can at it, because it's a big problem.
Okay, so you could be annoyed with me. I voted no on it.
For crying out loud.
The reason why, this is the reason why, kind of what your husband was saying, and as someone who smoked for a very long time, not 2 decades, but almost. Okay. I started, there was no flavors. I mean, there was a menthol when I was smoking. Kids that want to smoke can smoke. Kids that want to vape will vape, whether it is nicotine flavored. This is my opinion. Nicotine flavored, cotton candy flavor, whatever. Okay. I agree with your husband on enforcement. And 2, it's a different world. We're coming at it, I think, from the wrong way. You need to go into education like we did with cigarettes. The reason why traditional cigarette numbers are down is because of the campaigns have been working. And so I think we need to do the same thing with vaping. They can get it online, Kim. All of these things, I think, is putting effort into the wrong thing. And so in that way, I do agree with your husband. And I'll say this, if I'm an adult and I choose to vape and I like the flavors, it doesn't seem to be, I don't want to use the word fair, but it's a business thing. If you want to ban tobacco, if you want to outlaw cigarettes, then do that. But doing it this way just doesn't seem to be something that has shown effective. I don't believe that banning flavored tobacco or flavored vape pens or whatever the hell you want to call it is going to make as much of an impact as education and, like your husband said, enforcement.
So when I look at who's behind that measure, obviously the tobacco companies are proponents of keeping those products in place. So anything tobacco companies support, I automatically oppose.
And I support, 100%. And I agree with that. I knew that it was going to pass. I had a feeling it was going, it did pass, right? I mean,
yeah, it passed.
So, easily, handedly.
Well, because what does it cost us to ban flavors? I mean, maybe it costs us
I think
enforcement.
It costs liquor stores. It costs them money. I mean, you're talking about a product that is legal to sell. So it does cost people money.
in the book, it said that the only cost to the state is the loss of revenue and tax revenue from the sales of those products.
Right.
Well,
The
okay,
legal sales of a product.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay
Okay.
with losing that tax revenue.
And you know what? It's not something I'm falling on the sword over. I just was like, I think that the effort and the all of that should go in a different way. John Slade in the live chat. I remember when cigarette companies would come to our neighborhood and hand out free packs. Oh yeah, I remember being at a bar and they'd have like the camel girls walking around giving you free packs of cigarettes. I mean, the number of Marlboro miles that my husband used to collect, he got bags. I mean, I was a tough, like, 1 pack a day Marlboro Red smoker for years. I didn't
Nikki.
need any sort of cotton candy flavored. It's an addiction. And so we need to come at it from the addiction. And I quit because I was educated about it. I didn't like how it smelled. If anything, I didn't pose some sort of rules that it needs to have some sort of scent because, kids are vaping in class and doing all this sort of nonsense. So that's just the way I voted.
Damien thinks I'm woefully ignorant on this issue, which he doesn't say. He doesn't say why, but my husband agreed with you on that. So Damien, you're not alone, but I still feel strongly about it. I'm going to feel strongly about anything I think can possibly protect my kids. I just am.
Right. Here's more from Damien. The media cannot separate the cannabis cart industry from the e-cigarette industry. Okay. I mean, it really, you don't know if somebody's using a vape pen. Although I will say, I feel like THC or whatever, a pen has a scent than cotton candy or something like that. So
I don't know.
I just wish. And then he went on to say the vitamin E acetate. Hold on. The vitamin E acetate. I just want to finish with Damon. Issue was bootleg THC carts, not e-cigarettes. Oh, that's a good point. That is a good point because people were filling up the cartridges. Remember the lung problems that people were having? Yeah. And that was frightening. I was frightened for people that I knew vaped.
Oh, totally. But Damien, that's not my point. My point is that it's my belief that cigarette companies created these flavors to target kids, to get kids into vaping cigarettes. And if that's the case, if kids are more attracted to those flavors, which is what research has shown, then I don't want them here. I don't want my kids to pick up a cigarette. I want Nikki never would have had to stop if she hadn't started. And so whatever I can, if I can keep my kids from even starting it or your kids from even starting it, that's what I want. So that was why I voted yes on that.
Perfect. Okay, we'll continue this conversation. The live chat, of course, is open. We will, of course, be talking about not just California races. We will be talking about national races, Trump's impact on it. I have to play you some sound of an interview he gave, which is the epitome of Trumpism. The Oz Fetterman race. I mean, Kim mentioned Herschel Walker and Warnock. I read one tweet that said evangelicals came out in force, I think like more than 70% for Herschel Walker and didn't for Reverend Warnock. I mean, who's devoted his life to Christ. And you would think this is what I'm not going to hate on evangelicals, but it really chaps my hide once again that they seem to believe one way and vote another, and it gets me so upset. And again, keep the live chats going. We will read more of your comments and keep a close eye on races like in Arizona and what have you. But first, let's get a look at some news with Kim.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
Good morning to you. This report is sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. And should I say good afternoon instead? I think so. President Biden will be speaking soon about the results of the midterm elections. The president addressing the nation from the White House. In a previous tweet, President Biden thanked poll workers and officials who he said worked into the night, as well as the millions of Americans who made their voices heard. Louisiana Congressman Steve Scalise is seeking even more power after winning his bid for re-election. The House Minority Whip wants to be the majority leader if the GOP wins the lower chamber. Meantime, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy sent Republicans a letter officially announcing his bid for Speaker of the House. The National Hurricane Center calling Nicole a large tropical storm. It's about 175 miles west of Palm Beach, Florida, winds of 70 miles per hour. Forecasters is to say that it's expected to hit the East Coast later tonight. So that is something to prepare for if you have a family there in the Florida area. It does look like we have some more election results in California. We saw most of the ballots being successful as far as the abortion issue, which would make abortion protected in the California Constitution. That was a major yes for California. Governor Gavin Newsom reelected. Many of the Democrats in office will be staying in office here in the state of California. And the suspended coach of the Boston Celtics is not going to be the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. Ime Udoka has been the assistant coach with the Nets before getting the job in Boston. There was speculation he'd go back to Brooklyn, where the head coach was recently fired, but the Nets have now named someone else, Jackie Vaughn, as the team's new coach. And this report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and businesses alike. If you need help with your taxes, give Steve a call. It's 888-TAX-DEAL, or you can catch him online at MoskowitzLLP.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Nikki Medoro Show. You're muted.
All right, there we go. Hello, hello, hello. You know, I always think that it unmutes me on its own, and it just doesn't do that. Okay, so we'll follow all of the results. You know, they're going to trickle in. Some of these races are just way too close to call. You know, I mentioned the San Jose mayor's race. The Santa Clara mayor's race is also neck and neck. And, you know, the amount of money that was thrown into that race as well with the 49ers and Levi Stadium and all that. So, you know, these are the things we are just going to have to wait for. And that's okay. It is A-okay to have to wait for results. We just need to stop thinking. And I think somebody in the comments had mentioned something, you know, the election night kind of talk and announcing winners. It just makes for good TV. We should turn the TV off and just be patient. And that's absolutely true. Okay, while I'm thinking about it, please do what I need you to do. And Kim McAllister, you weren't here to hear it.
Push the button. Come on, push the button.
We should just smash them.
Smash that thumbs up. Smash that thumbs up button. It really, really helps us get, I don't know, more views or something on YouTube. They just tell us we need to do it. And so we are. And of course, please support our show by going to our Patreon. You can find the link at thenikkimedoroshow.com. And Kim, also, you weren't here. This is our very first show on Facebook Live. So I figured out how to do it. So hello to all of our Facebook Live viewers. And we're saying you right then and there. So if you can share the show, the links can also be found at thenikkimedoroshow.com.
So if you're watching on Facebook, can you still click the like button?
See, so if you look at the top of our screen, do you see the hearts and the thumbs up?
Yeah.
I think that's from Facebook.
Oh.
I think. Okay. I don't know. I'm not going to hop on Facebook because Facebook told me that I shouldn't have that window open because it might make us all jittery or whatever. So I'm trying to reduce the possibility of that happening. So you guys just let me know in the comments. Let me give some shout outs because we did have some people donating to our live chat today already. Andreas gave us our $50 already. Andreas, we adore you. Mike Blumenkrantz feeling purple this morning with his $8.10 donation. Thank you so very much. So yeah, if you have the ability, we always love people that can support the show. Let's see. We also, watching election night returns is like watching a slow moving train wreck. The outcome is the same, whether you watch it or not. That's true. That's very, very true. I was drinking and watching with my husband and putting my hand over my eyes like, are you friggin' kidding me? JD Vance, I'm telling you. I can't believe her. There's so many. Mike Hendricks with a $10 donation in the live chat. We adore you and love you. And thank you so much. So yeah, you can just see that $sign right at the bottom for everyone that is new to the live chat feature. And that helps us keep the lights on and pay the bills. So big thank you. And we'll read whatever comment you have in the chat when you do that. So last night, as I was watching, there was a bunch of takeaways. The number one, of course, was control of Congress, which we still won't know, and we won't know for a while. But then there was this question of what was bringing out the voters. Now, Kim, remember we kept putting like row, row, row your vote, but a lot of people did not believe that issue was going to be enough to bring out voters. So here is a tale of two comments. Now, this is Peter Doocy, or Douchey, as I like to call him, right? That's Peter Douchey. And he's, of course, on Fox and Friends. And listen to what he had to say. So here we go. Let's play him.
The Democrats probably should say, you know what? We put too much emphasis on abortion and the threat to democracy and not enough emphasis on kitchen table stuff. Abortion and democracy were the two of the biggest issues with voters.
Yeah, you think so? You think that maybe women don't want you telling them what to do with their bodies? I mean, perhaps when we talk about freedom and democracy, people like to start at home. And by home, I mean literally within their own bodies. So it was encouraging to see. I flipped it to, I don't know if you ever turn it to Fox News during election night. I always like to. And I think I was turning it on and Brett Baer was on. And I'm not even kidding. He had his hand like this. Like he was just, I'm thinking they prepare a certain way. And then as the results were coming in, they're like, yeah, no, this isn't working out for us the way that we thought it was going to. So not at all.
Well, abortion was on the ballot in many states. California, of course, approving an amendment to the Constitution to kind of protect it in our state. But they did something similar in Michigan, supporting abortion as well. And that's a state where you don't know how it's going to go.
Well, exactly. And that wasn't the only one. And I was trying to bring it up as you were talking about it, because let's do this. Kansas, I think, was also had started it off, right? Kentucky, that's the one I was looking for. So abortion has been almost entirely illegal in Kentucky since the summer. And so abortion right advocates won a victory during this last election. An anti-abortion amendment was defeated. Now, this isn't the end of it. So next week, the Kentucky Supreme Court will decide, or have the opportunity to decide, whether Kentucky in its constitution will protect abortion rights. But if you can make that happen in Kentucky and in Kansas and some of these other states, I mean, Republicans have to be paying attention to this. If they did or do get control, maybe they're seeing the writing on the wall and will back the hell off of their idea, because you heard, who was it? Was it Lindsey Graham that was saying, basically make it a federal law instead of the whole time they've been saying leaving it up to states. And so we'll see the impact of these midterms on Republicans, because I do think that they've realized what's important to most Americans. Some history was made. Wes Moore, a Democrat in Maryland, became the first Black governor. Moira Healey became the first woman elected governor of Massachusetts. Sometimes when I read these headlines, Kim, I'm like, really? The first woman ever elected governor of a state? And that should remind us how far we still have to go with some of these things. It's insane.
We've never had a female governor in California.
That's true. I mean, but these are the moments where you're like, what's wrong with us? I mean, we have a female lieutenant governor, which is good. And Eleni Koulounakis, I believe, won. I don't think she was really facing any sort of real challenge there.
So Moira Healey from Massachusetts is not only the first woman, but also the first openly gay person to be elected the governor of Massachusetts.
In Massachusetts. Wow. See? And I'm just going to say this, and I'm not saying we hold all the flags in this area, but it does seem when we're breaking glass ceilings, it's the Democrats that are doing it, right? And I hate the word token, but when you're looking at someone like a Herschel Walker, right? I think that they chose him simply because he checks some boxes, not necessarily that they're really trying to break through ceilings or give somebody with any sort of real experience a chance to run for office. Not at all. I feel like Republicans just play this game. in between Oz, and thank God Fetterman won. I was watching his speech last night. Did really well, I would say, for people talking about him being able to give speeches and stuff like that. So Fetterman won. We're still out, and it's going to be a runoff between Warnock and Herschel Walker. And I don't get it. I don't understand how so many people in Georgia made that vote. Stacey Abrams lost against Kemp. That was disappointing. But again, it's Georgia. It's the South. And here's the other thing. And I was talking to my husband about this last night, Kim. It's, we always talk about the bubble, right? Oh, we're in this, liberal bubble in California. And I think that elections like this, where people put so much time and attention into races like in a place like Georgia, Texas, Florida, and then it goes completely the other way. Like it's not even close, right? I mean, in Georgia it is, but look at DeSantis in Florida against Crist. And, Beto O'Rourke did not do well, right, against Abbott. It makes you wonder, what are we missing? And I think the thing that we're missing is that we are such a big country, and that the issues that are important to us here in California may not be resonating like we think they are in other states, obviously. And I don't know how we bridge that gap. I know that you had sent me that picture of you and your mother, writing letters and doing those sorts of campaigns. And I'm just wondering if it's making any sort of difference. I don't want to be too pessimistic about the whole thing, but it doesn't seem like we're making that much headway all the time. Yeah.
And yet, again, abortion issues in the 5 states considering them all passed yesterday. And so maybe it made some difference. Maybe, writing to people about issues that are so, close to one's own life, maybe that makes a difference. I'd like to think it does.
I'd like to think it does too. And I wouldn't stop doing it, of course. But how do we convince people about issues, because their votes impact, let's say, Congress, and then, my control over my own body? How do you reach them in a way that resonates? And I don't know the answer to that. And that's what's scary about the whole thing. Amy Brown, can we just take a moment of celebration that we never have to hear from Lauren Boebert for a few years? I don't know, Amy. I don't know. Hold on. I had her up. The split, it's still pretty close. It is a 49.6 to 50.4. I mean, it is, and that's with 95% reporting. I don't think it's been called yet for her. Adam Frisch, the Democrat, has more than 50%. So possibly, I don't think it's been called yet for her. I really hope so. Marjorie Taylor Greene easily got reelected, which blows my mind.
How does it even happen?
And again, what are we missing? She's a tool. She's not on any committees. She was stripped of her committees so quickly that what has she possibly really proven to do except be the thorn in the side of Democrats? And I answered my own question there. Obviously, I answered my own question. Yeah, I don't know, Amy. I'm not trying to disappoint anyone, but I don't think Boebert's race has been called against Frisch. So I'm going to hold off on celebrating. But yeah, that'd be awesome. Her and Marjorie Taylor Greene, they both, right? They just both need to go. Eric Swalwell, he put out a tweet last night, has some poor language in it, just letting you know. But literally, I have been saying this. Where did it go? Here it is. I have been saying this since Trump won against Hillary Clinton. And he says, no matter how the rest of the evening goes, let this be a lesson to our side that the polls, the pundits, the conventional wisdom is 100% bull blank BS. Absolutely. I am so done with the polling. 538, not accurate. This whole red wave, not accurate. Now, on one hand, I like the polling because if you fear like you're going to lose, it might embolden people to go vote, right? Don't sit on your laurels and think that we have it in the bag and then not go vote. On the other hand, it sets this stage up for Republicans like, let's say, Carrie Lake in Arizona to say, no, are you telling me all these polls, there's nothing bad going on and some fraud going on? How are we doing so well in the polls? And then this happens, right? And so the New York Times put out a great article. and was talking about who the hell's getting polled. It says, who in the world is still answering pollsters' phone calls? Because this is not the first time that people have had this question. I have never been polled. I have never, in the history of ever being a registered voter, received a phone call asking me my opinion about anything politically, ever. And so the question is, how do we know that it's accurate? So here, let's go one by one. So one question about polling is, how do they know where we are? How do the pollsters know where we are? They say, obviously, if you're registered to vote, your phone number is there. Addresses the same way. If you've moved, once you register, that number follows you, of course. Then here's the question that I think a lot of people ask. How do you account for the fact that few people answer the damn phone? They said, okay, so this is one statistic they say. In the poll we have in the field right now, only 0.4% of dials have yielded a completed interview. Okay. It wasn't nearly as bad 6, 4, or even 2 years ago when 1.6% of dials yielded a complete interview. The Times has more resources than most organizations, but it's pretty close to death of telephone polling numbers. Call screening is the biggest problem. And so what they do is the sample of people they do reach is demographically and politically representative. I think there's a huge assumption that people are telling you the truth. Emily Hoeven was on with us earlier this hour talking about this exact same thing. Maybe people just aren't being honest in the answers that they're giving. So how they account for it is they think that it's politically representative, demographically representative. If they poll in a state where registered Democrats outnumber Republicans by 2 percentage points, and then the respondents wind up being 4%, we give less weight to Democratic respondents. I'm just thinking we got to ignore the polls, and we just always have to fight like we're the underdog. We always have to believe that whatever issue we're fighting for or whatever candidate we want is going to lose. And we need to continue to pound that into the minds of the people that we know all the time. Yeah, Randy, Lake in Arizona already saying the election for governor was fraudulent. They did have some sort of issues early on, I think in Maricopa County, with the machines, I believe it was. But things like that are not uncommon. But of course, if she won, there'd be no problem. And we know this. We absolutely know this. Okay, let's go. We have time. Let's go.
She laid that groundwork though earlier. Remember, we played video of her saying, refusing to say that, if she lost, that she would say the election was fair. And she kept repeating over and over again, well, I won't lose. Well, I won't lose. Blah, blah, blah. And now you see today headlines with her, casting doubt on the validity of the election yet again. It's like she just took the playbook from Trump and used it for herself.
Here she is yesterday, talking about whether or not, I think this was yesterday, talking about whether or not she is going to serve a full 4 years or run for 2024. Listen to this.
I want to just follow up on this question, if I may. If Donald Trump announces, as expected, to be president and you win the governorship of Arizona, you're likely to be talked about as a VP candidate. Do you plan to serve your entire term in Arizona, or are you open to being the VP?
Are you new covering this race? Because we've talked about this before. We've talked about this. I've answered these questions. I am going to not only be the governor of Arizona for 4 years, I'm going to do 2 terms. I'm going to be your worst freaking nightmare for 8 years. And we will reform the media as well. We're going to make you guys into journalists again. So get ready. It's going to be a fun 8 years. I can't wait to be working with you guys.
I mean, reform the media. She was what, a local TV personality? I mean,
does that mean say what she wants us to say?
Yeah.
Is that what reforming the media is?
It's the attack on the media again, right? It's the same, just as you were saying, it's the same playbook that Trump has. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, if he does announce his run and he's going to make this announcement next Tuesday, I wouldn't be surprised if he pulls her as his running mate. I mean, she's attractive. He loves attractive women, right?
We know he's not picking Pence.
He's not picking Pence. Now, I had mentioned this at the start of the show. Do you think for Biden or whoever is the Democratic presidential candidate that it's good for Trump to jump in the race to dilute the DeSantis, because DeSantis is going to run, or not? Or would you rather have him stay out of it? Oh, Kim's. Well,
Oh, I
we'll
don't
mull
know.
that. It's okay.
Are you talking about? You're talking about DeSantis? Would I rather have him run or not?
Would you rather have Trump run or DeSantis run?
Oh, is it like half a dozen of one, half a dozen of the other? I
Yeah.
guess DeSantis. Well, Trump is a known, and I would like to think he'll go down to defeat. So maybe Trump, but just the mere idea that he could be reelected, I guess I'll go DeSantis. If you're gonna make me pick one, it's like, are you gonna shoot yourself in the thumb or the big toe? I don't know.
Well, this is what I think. I think that if Trump jumps in, he dilutes the GOP vote. It'll split the GOP vote. And so I mean, obviously, then we have to figure out who the nominee actually is going to be. But I don't know. I'm like you. I don't know. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. That's what you're saying. And yes, Nick, Carrie Lake is attractive, unfortunately. She is. I mean, she was on TV for a reason. I mean, let's just be honest. I'm not going to lie or anything like that. All right. We're going to have some news coming up in just a moment. But first, we do need to bring on our exclusive founding sponsor, Steve Moskowitz, who is here. And, after an election night, people are probably mulling around what politics means for their taxes and what they can do and what problems may arise, Steve, if they're not doing their taxes right or they are audited by the IRS.
And Nikki, can I use a bad word on your show?
Of course. Go ahead.
IRS audit.
I thought you were going to say something else. Okay.
That's something that we have to deal with. So what I'd say with an IRS audit, whether you think you're the most innocent person in the world, or upon reflection, you've done some things you wish you hadn't, you should have good counsel going in there for you. And in almost all cases, you have the right to be represented and not be there. You don't have to talk to them, deal with them, have anything to do with them, and you don't want to do that. Think of an IRS audit like a heavyweight boxing match. Nobody but another heavyweight boxer better get in that ring, because even if you're the local tough guy, you get in a ring with a professional heavyweight, he'll kill you. And that's what happens in an audit. An audit is a gateway to bad things. Criminal charges, opening other years, having interviews with your friends, family, neighbors, customers, people you do business with, vendors. You don't want any of that. So you want containment and you want the best possible result. And as tax attorneys, what we want for you, no matter what you may have done, is to get you the best possible result within the bounds of the law. What we have to offer you is exercising all your legal rights, and you have all kinds of them. That auditor is there, just like that professional boxer, to knock your head off, to win. That's what we're there for. And a lot of times in tax law, the cases are split where you say, Steve, can I deduct X? I say, well, there's a bunch of cases that say yes, a bunch of cases that say no. The auditor's job is not to tell you about that. The auditor's job is to say, you're wrong. Your only recourse is to immediately pay this tax plus penalties plus interest. No, not the case. And that auditor is not judge, jury, and executioner. There's a lot of effective area above his or her head where you can take the case to someone who's more experienced, oftentimes more reasonable, and say, look, let's make a deal. And that is so vitally important. And once you go above the audit level, things can be so much different than some auditor that says, well, and some of them can be really picky. For example, there are some auditors, if you bring all of your receipts, but not in the order that the auditor would like, they'll say, well, okay, I'm not going to look at anything. I'm going to treat it as if you have no receipts. Here's your bill. Come on.
No.
But yes, but again, it's a difference between knowing your rights and because there's a government guy you're talking to.
Right.
And, he does have authority, does have power, but you have all kinds of rights. And that's what we do for you. And again, we're here for you. We've dedicated our professional careers to tax.
I love the fact that you mentioned, the IRS can say one thing and you'll just go with it because, you're afraid of the government. But Steve, you'll fight that fight for people. Give Steve a call, AAA Tax Deal or MoskowitzLLP.com. That's MoskowitzzLLP.com. All right, Steve.
The highlight of my day hearing that jingle.
I love it. I know that you look forward to it. We'll talk next hour. Thanks, Steve.
Take care.
Bye. Yeah. So again, AAA Tax Deal, MoskowitzLLP.com. Don't forget the LLP or the .com. Okay. So we have a lot more to digest over last night, election night. We'll head to Florida, We will talk about, what did Florida show us Californians? What did Lindsey Graham have to say about this so-called red wave, the Republican wave, and Trump's endorsement? So he was giving an interview regarding his endorsements and where the blame should lie. Again, we'll touch on some of the national ones. We already talked about Boebert. Celebrity endorsements. Speaking of that, Katy Perry getting vilified in the LA mayor's race. And it's surprising with Katy Perry simply because, remember, she was the singer. I mean, she was the entertainment for Hillary Clinton when Hillary Clinton was running against Donald Trump. And yet, Katy Perry threw her support behind anti-abortion billionaire Rick Caruso in the LA mayor's race. And so, I think that the abortion issue is came out a lot stronger in this election than many people realized. Colorado, they're a bit split on whether or not they want you to take magic mushrooms. And, we were talking about flavored tobacco. Drugs, are they becoming more front and center in some of these elections? And so we'll be definitely keeping an eye on that. But first, let us take a look at some headlines.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
And this report is sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. Ballots being counted right now across the Bay Area, and there are still several races too close to call. In San Jose, the two candidates fighting to become the next mayor are only separated by about 4,600 votes, with Matt Mahan leading Cindy Chavez. In the crowded race for Oakland Mayor, Lauren Taylor is out front with a small lead. The city has a ranked choice voting system, though, so it could take a little longer to figure out and calculate who exactly won that. Candidates in two district attorney races are watching for more results. In San Francisco, interim DA Brooke Jenkins spoke to supporters last night. Stopped short, though, of declaring victory. She's competing with three others. She's got 48% of the vote, but she needs more than 50% to win. In Alameda County, Terry Wiley has 52% over opponent Pamela Price's 48%. Whoever is elected there will make history as Alameda County's first Black district attorney. Election officials in Arizona say tens of thousands of ballots have been sent to be tabulated. This coming as Arizona has two closely watched races still too early to call. The race for governor between Democrat Katie Hobbs and Republican Kari Lake remains very close, as does the Senate race between incumbent Democrat Mark Kelly and Republican Blake Masters. Virginia's governor is apologizing now for comments that he made after House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband was attacked. Speaking at a rally late last month, Republican Glenn Youngkin said there's no room for violence anywhere, but that we're going to send Pelosi back to be with her husband in California. Now, reports say Youngkin has sent Nancy Pelosi a handwritten apology note.
Yeah, I saw that. And I think on one hand, I'm glad, right? You hope people kind of wake up. But I saw that it wasn't clear whether Nancy Pelosi received the letter, but her spokesperson said it was postmarked November 1st. So that means it was sent 4 days after the attack at the speaker's home, and also 4 days after Youngkin's flippant remarks about it. And so did it take too much time for him to rethink his comments? But yeah, we don't need to joke or make light of an 82-year-old man being beaten with a hammer inside his own house, let alone the husband of the Speaker of the House. It's not a good look, Youngkin. It's not a good look.
No, and I was reading, and I forget who said it, but there was another candidate last night who was talking about Pelosi and said, we're going to send her back to California with a hammer. And then he said, oh, is it too soon? Yeah, it's actually too soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Tropical Storm Nicole, we've been watching her. She's forcing Walt Disney World in Florida to close down. Nikki, what have you done? In a statement, Disney Parks said the phased closure begins at 5 Eastern, the park staying closed through tomorrow morning. So Tropical Storm Nikki already shutting down Disney World.
It's never Nikki. It's always Nicole. I mean, it's all fancy. I've never gone by Nicole. The only person that calls me Nicole are my parents sometimes, and then my mother-in-law if she wants to get my attention. But I
Like
don't
when
go
you're
by
in trouble, when
It's like
someone's
Nicole. No, and I'm not listening. Probably. It's like, hey, I'm like, ugh, what?
So we know this morning that Facebook plans to lay off quite a few workers. I think 11,000.
11,000. Yeah.
Yeah, 11,000 workers. Now, Salesforce is the latest Bay Area tech firm to also be announcing layoffs. The San Francisco-based company, the largest private employer in the city, company executives say hundreds of pink slips will be handed out to employees based on their sales performance and their accountability. So it's not first in, last out at Salesforce. It's how well you perform.
I mean, does it make you feel like in good company, Kim?
Yeah,
Like
everyone's getting a layoff right now. Oh, Lord.
Jesus.
So this one doesn't come as a surprise. Eating
Okay.
ultra processed foods may lead to premature death. Researchers in Brazil finding consuming foods like frozen pizza, donuts, and hot dogs are likely responsible for 57,000 deaths in 2019 among adults aged 30 to 69. The study appeared in the latest American Journal of Preventive Medicine. You know, the things like that, it's not one hot dog. It's not one frozen pizza. It's if you eat that all the time, if that's your steady diet.
That's the American diet is very processed food. And so then you have to argue with yourself. It's like, okay, well, do I eat the kale and live longer eating kale? Or do I eat the delicious donuts and enjoy myself? No, I mean, you should. It's moderation.
Donuts.
Moderation. Exactly. Moderation, people. Don't eat it every day.
The news sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz for more than 30 years. Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and businesses alike. If you need help with your taxes, he's the guy. Give a call. Steve, it's 888-TAX-DEAL. He's also on the internet at moskowitzllp.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Nikki Medoro Show.
All right. Welcome back to hour 2 of the Nikki Medoro Show. Please, while we're thinking about it, do what they tell you to do and push that button.
Come on, push the button.
That button. Hit the thumbs up to show your support of the show. YouTube loves thumbs up, so do it each and every show just once. Click it. Love it. Also, visit our website. Click it. TheNikkiMedoroShow.com, TheNikkiMedoroShow.com. YouTube links to share with your family and friends are there. Plus the link to our Patreon is right there as well. And there's so many ways for you to help the show. The super chat is live. We're going to go through and give some shout outs in just a moment for all of those that have been donating during the show. So you can definitely throw us some dollars. Andreas has been a daily one. We love all of you. And yes, hello to all of our Facebook watchers. Although I think Amy Brown was the one that had chatted in that if you want to participate in the community that is being formed, going on YouTube is the way to do it. So I'm putting it on Facebook so more people find the show, but the community that is in the YouTube channel, amazing. You guys I see all these friendships that are being made while the show is going on, and we absolutely love it. Now, Wes, I just want to say this. Wes is in Florida. He calls it America's penis, which is really, really funny. But
it really is.
You were doing the Hurricane Nicole, and he's saying the grocery stores here near Orlando are closing early, and they're canceling school tomorrow as well. Yeah, the hurricane is supposed to hit, and again, another state of emergency in Florida that doesn't want to do anything to help us with greenhouse gas emissions and climate change. Those words will not come out of Governor DeSantis's mouth. And so they're just going to continue to face these things. And it's absolutely ridiculous. But thanks, Wes, for tuning in.
Wes, be safe out there and take good care of yourself and, stay dry.
Yeah, exactly. So, Florida, it's Marco Rubio handedly won. It's one of those things where you wish that it went a different way. Val Demings, I think, put up a good fight against Marco Rubio, but it wasn't even close. But the so-called red wave did not materialize. Not at all. Lindsey Graham was saying on NBC, definitely not a Republican wave. That's for darn sure. And a lot of people are blaming Trump. Now, I'm going to show this to you. So Trump, who was he on with? Let me see who he was on with. He was given an interview. It was on election night, News Nation. I don't know if that's a right winger. I can't keep track of all this nonsense that he's on. Well, he's on News Nation. And he was being asked about his endorsements and how well they pan out. And so here is former President Donald Trump. Oh, hold on. Let me share it properly. So he has endorsed obviously a lot of candidates, and how well are they going to play out for him?
You've endorsed more than 330 candidates this election cycle. Tonight, win or lose, the results for Republicans, how much of that will be because of Donald Trump?
Well, I think if they win, I should get all the credit. And if they lose, I should not be blamed at all. Okay. But it'll probably be just the opposite. When they win, I think they're going to do very well. I'll probably be given very little credit, even though in many cases I told people to run. And they ran, and they turned out to be very good candidates. You know, they've turned out to be very good candidates.
No.
But usually what would happen is when they do well, I won't be given any credit. And if they do badly, they will blame everything on me. So I'm prepared for anything, but we'll defend ourselves.
Yeah, it's such a typical response. Did you also hear that Trump said that Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor, could have been more gracious, was not gracious enough to him for backing his first gubernatorial win? He said, Ron is a person, I've always had a decent relationship with him. But when I endorsed him, he was gone. He was not going to be able to even be a factor in the race. And as soon as I endorsed him, within moments, the race was over. I got him the nomination. He did not get it. I got it because the minute I made that endorsement, he got it. I thought he could have been more gracious, but that's up to him. And so the reason I bring this up, of course, is DeSantis is running for president. Remember, Chris asked him during the debate, are you committed to serving 4 years as governor? And he wouldn't say it. He just looked like a dumbass at the screen like, is it time? Is it time? He wouldn't answer it because we know the answer. Of course he's going to run for president. He loves this. And winning so decisively in Florida right now, after all the nonsense with COVID and what have you, he has so much behind him right now to run.
So you were mentioning the reaction before the election. Now that some of the candidates have subpar results, according to an article in SF Gate, the former president is very, very unhappy. Apparently, according to SF Gate, livid, furious, screaming at everyone after Republican candidates, especially his endorsees, underperformed expectations in Tuesday's midterm elections.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's
exactly.
freaking out.
The other thing, of course, is if Democrats do lose control of the House, that would make Kevin McCarthy House Speaker, which if there was anybody that is in it for their own political reasons, it's freaking Kevin McCarthy. So he was being interviewed on CNN and was kind of just talking about, what would happen if the Republicans should be in power, specifically in the House, obviously, because, that's where he is. So let me play a bit of this sound. And this is him, because one of the things that's been floated because of Marjorie Taylor Greene and others is how much nonsense is there really going to be with impeachment and stuff like that. So here we go. Oh, hold on. Let me turn on the volume. There we go.
Republicans made investigations a huge priority. I know you said no, not going to predetermine the outcome, but is impeachment on the table?
You know what's on the table? Accountability. Shouldn't we know where the origins of COVID actually started? They didn't have one hearing on it. Shouldn't we know what happened in the last 60 days of Afghanistan? So we would never repeat that again. We wouldn't have 13 new Gold Star families. That should have never happened. Shouldn't we know why the DOJ would take it upon themselves to go after parents that would go to school board meetings? And shouldn't we know where the taxpayers' money is being spent? I call that accountability. And that's a responsibility for Congress, regardless of whoever party is in the White House.
Some of your members are already calling for impeachment. What do you say to those members?
I say the one thing I've always known about the land of America, it's the rule of law. And we will hold the rule of law, and we won't play politics with this. We'll never use impeachment for political purposes. That doesn't mean if something rises to the occasion, it would not be used at any other time. It wouldn't matter if it's a Republican or Democrat.
Right.
But the idea of what the Democrats have done, what Adam Schiff did to this nation,
please.
is treacherous. To lie to the nation and put us through this time and again when he knew where this origins created from, we're better than all that. We need to make sure we get our nation back on track. And that's what the commitment to America does. It plans for a new direction, economy that's strong, a nation that is safe, a future that's built on freedom, and a government that's accountable.
You're so full of crap, McCarthy.
Blah,
I mean,
blah, blah.
he is so full of crap. I mean, the fact that he flip-flopped after January 6th tells you everything you need to know about Kevin McCarthy. And I don't know if he's going to be the choice for House Speaker. Who was this? David Odell said, I don't think McCarthy's a shoo-in after the non-red wave. He's going to take some blame for that. Interesting take.
And already there are other Republicans that are lining up to be the House Speaker if indeed that ends up being the case, that Republicans take control. But regarding impeachment, I just wanted to mention that usually you have an offense for, like, I don't know, Watergate, right? You have someone that does something, right? Lying to federal investigators about Monica Lewinsky, whatever it may be. You have first the offense is committed, and then you say, all right, we've got to deal with this. We've got to impeach. It's not the other way around. You don't say, let's impeach him, and then go out and find a reason. No. That's not how it works. First the offense is committed, and then the penalty is doled out, not the penalty and the offense. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. But that's how they're going to do it. That's absolutely how they're going to do it. Eric Kennedy, they're going to have absolutely nothing but investigations of Democrats until 2024. And because, the whole kind of lame duck session, is Biden going to run? I think that is really important and a question that I don't think Democrats want to answer right now, if you want to be honest. I mean, how many people do, honestly, in the live chat, go ahead. Who wants Biden to run? Who wants him to announce today that he's running? Do you, Kim?
I wouldn't not like him to run.
Do you want him to announce it, though? That's what I mean. When do you announce?
When do I want him to announce that he is or is not running?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I mean, if he's not running, I think the sooner the better, right? Or does that take really attention away from everything that's going on? And put it on to who's going to run. And then so nothing he is doing is going to really get credit, and he becomes a lame duck. I think it behooves him to wait.
Yeah, and that's what I think too, because the minute he decides one way or another, it's I don't know if it's going to play for him. I think leaving the question mark works for Democrats, but of course, next Tuesday with former President Trump announcing something. Now, so here's the way that I want it to go. And this is just my opinion. Trump's going to announce that he's going to run for president, which would mean him going up against Ron DeSantis, which in my opinion would split the Republican votes and help Democrats. What I don't want to happen is Trump and DeSantis working together. I don't think that's going to be able to be overcome by.
They have to run against. They have to run against each other in a primary. But once the primary is figured out, then they can go into cahoots and work together. And then, maybe you'll have some, a bigger problem.
Right. I mean, yeah, it's not like Trump's going to announce his running mate. I get what you're saying, of course. But I don't want DeSantis and Trump to run together. But if they both announce that they're running in the primary against each other, who do you think will get it? I mean,
it's so hard.
I think DeSantis is going to be way more popular than Trump. Trump comes with way too much baggage.
Who do you think's worse?
That's a hard one. See, DeSantis, I feel like is a moron. Like, I feel like I feel so strongly about how dumb he is. I feel like he presents himself in a way, though, that appeals to Republican voters. He talks about business and where he sides, and the whole COVID thing. I mean, he even was taken on Disneyland. So I feel like he has that going for him. So on one hand, I feel like Biden could beat Trump again. So I kind of want Trump to be the candidate because I think that DeSantis doesn't have that baggage.
So I looked at the way
thinking.
DeSantis handled the recent hurricane,
Mhm.
right? Trying to get help to people. And
Of course, you do what you have to do.
I don't feel like Trump could have done that. I think he's so ineffective that, like Bush during the major hurricane, I think it was Katrina, where all kinds of failures happened and people didn't get the protection or the food or anything that they needed. I mean, just look at Trump throwing out paper towels in Puerto Rico, right? I mean, you have these moments where they're clear moments to lead and Trump failed. Whereas DeSantis in Florida, it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but at least he handled that hurricane. So at least the people in a natural disaster got the help they needed. I'm not saying he's kind. I'm not saying he's a nice guy. I'm not saying I'm against everything he stands for. But at least when push comes to shove and you really have to take care of people, perhaps he's the better choice.
Okay. All right. Well, you guys can let us know.
Are you not buying what I'm selling?
I don't know. I mean, again, I would like both of them to go away, right? I mean, I would just love it. I mean, God, what if Liz Cheney runs?
Wow.
What if Liz Cheney runs and gets some Democrats in the primary to switch their party affiliation? I mean, just to vote in the primary for her.
But she wasn't successful in her own state. So you would have to have a majority of Republicans who put country over party and respect her for doing that. And I think really it's Democrats that respect her for doing that. Republicans just want to pick the candidate that gets them the votes to ban abortion, or they want to, put all the Republican or conservative candidates on the Supreme Court. It's a means to an end for them. And she got in their way. I don't know if she can pull out a win, even though I respect her.
Yeah, I fear that you may be right. And then, of course, there's the issues, right? I mean, like I played you that sound of Douchey from Fox and Friends talking about how they didn't think abortion and preserving democracy was going to be a major issue for voters, and it turned out to be. Now, Katy Perry, who again sang for Hillary Clinton, like, what was it? The fireworks song, right? Wasn't that the song that she was playing? You would think that she would vote a certain way. And of course, there's been many, and we talked about the celebrities endorsing for LA mayor. Again, Rick Caruso against Karen Bass, and it's still too close to call, which is shocking. Well, Katy Perry is being dragged on social media for voting for Rick Caruso. Apparently, she likes his business acumen or whatever, but it's surprising that she would vote for an anti-abortion candidate. And a lot of people are saying you can F right off. But there was this social media page. It was a Twitter page. It's called, what's it called? It's called Roe v. Bros. Okay. And I'm telling you, if you haven't followed this, and I don't know how many of you are going to stay on Twitter, you'll love this, Kim. So this woman from Roe v. Bros goes out and interviews men. And the reason why this is funny is because when we are talking about voting for men like Rick Caruso, you're voting for men who don't have a woman's body, right? I mean, they're not put in the same position with the overturning of Roe v. Wade as women are. Hands down. That's just a fact. They are not impacted in the same way that women are. And yet they are, in many cases, making decisions about our bodies. Also at a time when they don't know how female bodies work. So here again, listen to this.
Even looking at, I can't even.
Okay. So here we go. Can you see the video? Okay. So this is a woman. She is from Roe v. Bros, and she interviews men and she asks them questions about a woman's body. I was cracking up.
I don't think it's recommended.
Okay, so the first question is, I'll start over. Can women pee with a tampon in?
Can you pee with a tampon in? I don't think it's recommended.
Welcome to another episode of Roe v. Bros, the game show where we find out how much men know about women's bodies.
This is great.
I think you got to take it out. I've seen the little tampon trash cans in the.
Oh my God.
Probably why.
Why are there different types of tampons?
I love this.
Different sizes of vaginal cavities.
About how many tampons would one use for their period on average?
One? I think one, to be honest. One. And they put them inside.
Ugh.
Yes. What is a period?
What is a period?
It's the time of the month where the woman is ovulating.
No.
Can you pee with a tampon in?
No.
Okay, no.
No.
All right. Are you registered to vote?
Yes.
Are you registered to vote?
Yes.
Are you registered to vote?
Yes.
Don't let man brains outvote women in the upcoming election. Vote November 8th.
Oh my God. I was dying laughing. And she has so many of these.
That is the best.
This
I've
is what
never
we're
seen her
talking about.
before. I love that.
Yeah, I went on her again, Roe v. Bros. It's I think yesterday I found it and I started following it and it only had like less than 700 followers. So hopefully they get more. But this is what I'm talking about. It's funny to laugh, right?
We need to have her on. We need to get her on the show.
Men don't have, it's not all men. And my husband knows, he grew up with sisters. I'm educating my son, all these things. But if men don't even know that you can pee with a tampon in, and the correct answer, men, is yes, because it's not the same hole. I can't believe I had to say that out loud. Why should they be making decisions about our body? Right? You don't even know how the body works. You don't even know what a period is, some of you men. And so that's what aggravates me about the whole thing, is that men are in power in this country making decisions about a woman's body, a body many of them, not all, but many of them don't even understand. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous.
I thought the answer of vaginal cavity size was interesting. No, it is not. That's not the reason.
There's so many. I could do a whole show just on like replaying some of these videos and some of the answers that these men give. Like there was one, she asked him like, how soon after giving birth can you have another baby? You know, and just some of the ridiculous answers. And yet she asked him, are you registered to vote? Yep. And you'll probably, some of them will vote against a woman's right to choose and have no comprehension about what a woman is dealing with, what an ectopic pregnancy is, what danger that has to her health. All of these questions, because men have men's bodies and women have women's bodies. And so I don't know, but yeah, it is Ricky O'Bear. I am embarrassed. I mean, maybe we should just do quizzes in our live chat of like, come on, let's educate people. Idiocy knows no gender. Well, that is definitely true. But when we are talking about a woman's body and what she can and cannot do, you think men that are trying to make decisions about it would have some sort of idea. Oh yeah, I'm going to reach out to her. I'm going to try because she's so funny. And I wouldn't be able to keep a straight face. Like she's like, yeah, no, like it's just way too much. All right. Okay. So continue to throw your comments into the live chat. I want to throw a couple more results at you though. I really do. I already talked about Kentucky, how they voted against an anti-abortion bill. But their Supreme Court, their state Supreme Court, will decide next week whether they'll actually take up the issue of putting it in their constitution. But it was a big win for a lot of reproductive right races, specifically with, governors and attorneys general and people voting for stuff like that. Also coming up after Kim's news, we will touch on Proposition 122 in Colorado that would legalize
psychedelic mushrooms.
Yeah, the magic mushroom. So, this whole idea of legalizing recreational drugs like this, this used to be something you did at a Grateful Dead concert or something like that. But the more research that they're putting into it, the more benefits that some people are seeing medicinally for some of this stuff, dealing with PTSD and other issues. So is that resonating with voters? We'll see. We'll have some lighter news. We'll touch a little bit on Twitter. Elon Musk is getting some pushback from advertisers that he quote unquote wanted to name and shame. And then I'll get into at least one health story. I was trying to get to it yesterday. And for all you contact lens wearers, you'll definitely want to tune in for that. Hit the thumbs up button, please, please, please. And if you can, donate to our live chat. We'll give some shout outs right after Kim's news here at the bottom of the hour. This is the Nikki Medoro Show on YouTube.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
And this report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. Wanted to talk about the state propositions here in California, kind of go over some of the results if you haven't seen the latest yet. Proposition 1, which brings the right to an abortion into the California state constitution and also discusses access to contraceptives in California, passing overwhelmingly 65% to 35%. Prop 26 and 27 dealing with legalized sports gambling has 70% of voters say no thank you to 26. 84% of voters saying no thank you to 27. Prop 28 funding public arts and the music programs in schools. Yes from voters. That one looking good. Prop 29 for dialysis clinics. 70% of voters saying no again. No thank you again to dialysis. I don't know how many times we're going to have to see it on the ballot.
Exactly. I just want to say real quickly, somebody had posted on Twitter, they're like, happy anniversary of this being back on the ballot in a couple of years. And someone's like, no, please. My daughter even knows about, she's like, how'd you vote on the dialysis patients? I mean, that your no campaign is really resonating when a 13-year-old is wondering about the results.
And shouldn't there be some type of, first of all, Californians, don't sign the thing you have to sign, the petition next time to get it on the ballot. Don't even sign. Yeah, why do you sign it? And don't you think that if it's on the ballot, I don't know, pick a number. If it's on the ballot 7 times, then that should be it. We need to have it like, okay, we're now overkill here.
Yeah, exactly. Just stop. Leave them alone.
Prop 30, that was the one that Governor Gavin Newsom came out and said they're trying to get rich people to pay for Lyft to buy the electric vehicles. He said vote no. Other people said, well, wait a minute. I don't know. Prop 30, which would add a tax to fund electric vehicles, that was the closest of all the propositions. So 41% voted yes for that, 59 no. So it looks like Governor Gavin Newsom had an effect on that one. And Prop 31, extending the ban on flavored tobacco products, is on track to pass. 62% of voters saying, we don't want that tobacco to be near our children. So goodbye, tobacco.
And we also need to mention the sports betting ones. So
that was 27 and 28.
26 and 27.
Oh, 26 and 27. So 26, which was the
tribal ones.
Gambling on tribal lands. 70% of voters say no.
So I voted this way. I voted actually yes. I know that after Station X, that whole thing, I voted yes simply because I feel like the tribe should get all the money that they can. I just do. I'm like, if you can make more money by allowing like roulette and everything happening on tribal lands, okay, because it didn't have to do with the online sports betting or anything like that. That was the Draft Duels sponsored one that was 27, and I definitely voted no on that. But they both went down.
You were not alone, because as far as the no's, 84% voting no on 27, which was the sports betting, and then 70% voting no on 26. So many more people saying no to 27 than 26, but still the no's are overwhelming in both cases.
Right.
Yeah. President Biden delivering remarks and taking questions on the results of the midterms this hour at the White House. He did tweet something out thanking poll workers and officials who worked into the night, as well as all the Americans who made their voices heard. Both chambers of Congress still undecided today after Democrats did surprisingly well in key battleground states last night. Kentucky Republican Mitch McConnell staying pretty quiet when it comes to yesterday's election results. When arriving at the Capitol today, the Senate Minority Leader telling reporters he doesn't have any more information than they do. Asked what he thinks about all this, McConnell said he doesn't deal in feelings. Wall Street is closing with stocks lower in the day after the midterms. This is coming as the price of Bitcoin dropped to its lowest level in 2 years. So I don't know, check your Bitcoin, Nikki, because I don't think you're going to be too about that. There's
Hold on.
a story.
I have not checked it. Hold on. Let me just do it real quickly. Hold on.
Check your
Since you're
Bitcoin.
doing it.
Nick,
So
a fraction of a coin.
I got a percentage of a Bitcoin. Okay, hold on. It tells me, oh, damn it. It wants me to confirm all this crap. Yeah. Confirm. All right. So it always flashes what it was and then it flashes to what it moved to. So it flashed $411 and now it's down to $345.
Oh, I
So
feel so
96
bad
cents.
for you.
I don't
Man.
care, actually. I only bought a fraction of a Bitcoin a few years ago, just so every single time Kim does a story about it, I could say, yeah, that nonsense is absolutely ridiculous.
It's kind of fun to follow along. I don't know if
Exactly.
I'm following this story in the South Bay, but former UFC champion Cain Velasquez, he's
Yes.
been in jail because of a shooting, right? He's out of jail for the first time since his arrest 8 months ago. He was released this morning on $1 million bail. He allegedly attempted to murder a suspected child molester back in February of this year during a high-speed chase and a shooting. He has been in jail, suspected molester not. So there was a big outcry about that. But again, out on $1 million bail this morning, finally tasting freedom. Also out of the South Bay, well, not anymore, but at one point, a professional hockey player says he is on the mend after an opponent accidentally skated over him during a game. Oh, it just gives me the oogies.
His face or skated over what part?
It looks like a wrist injury, which can be pretty dangerous, right? Evander Kane, who was very controversial with the San Jose Sharks, especially during the whole COVID vaccine situation. Evander Kane, now with the Edmonton Oilers, suffered an injury to his wrist in last night's game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Instantly started bleeding. He was taken off to the hospital. He says he's doing all right. So that's good.
Well, good. I'm glad he's doing okay, but that's awful.
This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, just tax knowledge to work for individuals and businesses alike. If you need help with your taxes, give him a call, 888-TAX-DEAL, or you can reach Steve online, moskowitzllp.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Nikki Medoro Show.
Yes, indeed. MOSKOWITZLLP.
.com.
Yeah, that's Moskowitz. Please support our sponsors. They really, really help us out. Hit that thumbs up while we're thinking about it. It helps with everything. Karen D writes in, Mitch McConnell, I don't deal in feelings. Yeah, you deal in votes, though. You deal in, control. And we shall see. Again, stay patient. A lot of races still way too close to call. I do want to say some thank yous. Amy Brown sent in a $4.99 super chat donation. Amy says, I've been in the Facebook Live, but I miss my comments being read.
Oh, Amy.
Avi. And then Sandra Moreno. Love you, Sandra. Thank you so much for the super sticker, $19.99. You're awesome. I adore you. I love you. Thank you. So you can donate money every single day in the super chat, the live chat, super stickers, super thanks. They got all kinds of supers in there. That's our favorite word here on YouTube. Helps. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, when I read all the Patreon donors, my heart gets so I get emotional.
Know.
It's tearful.
The messages that you guys have been sending, there was somebody, and I just responded to her today, and I'm sorry, I'm forgetting your name, sent me the longest email today regarding my daughter who's been having some gut issues and was just kind of giving me her child story. And I sent her a quick message back. Thank you. If you're watching or listening right now, it always helps. And I read every single email. I cannot respond to every single email, but I do respond. The Patreons, Kim's absolutely right. I mean, you are literally helping support the show. So if you can become a monthly subscriber to our Patreon, you can find the link at theNikkiMedoroShow.com. That's theNikkiMedoroShow.com. And we appreciate any and all donations. It has really, really helped us out. And yes, we are on Facebook. Today is our first time. And I'll go back. I don't want to open it up, because they said that Facebook, if you have Facebook open while I'm broadcasting live, it can make things all jittery. And we don't need any of that nonsense. So the Facebook Live is going with the show. So hello to all of my watchers on there. Please share the show. Please tune in. But like Amy Brown mentioned, if you watch it on YouTube, you can be part of our live chat community, who are absolutely hilarious. Some of you guys are really funny, and some of you guys disagree. But I will tell you this. We have not had too many trolls or sex ads. I mean, I know we've had some of them, those triple X sex ads on the thing, but yeah, the super chat is definitely
I try to block
live.
those pretty fast. Those porn bot people. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't need you putting your OnlyFans in my live chat. Okay, I don't need to do any of that. Only nice comments or disagree. Just be respectful, of course.
Right.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of comments regarding the sex education. I was trying to find one. Oh, this was from Vanessa. Vanessa, here we go. They were talking about how much sex ed has changed. Wes started it off saying, I think Americans have become more uptight about sex ed in school and such in recent years because we were playing that Roe v. Bros. And somebody else had said Roe v. Bros has blown up to 65,000 people on Twitter. So obviously, I was not the only one that had seen these funny videos where she's asking men about a woman's body and periods and stuff like that. Wes thinks that sex ed's become, more uptight. And Vanessa was saying, I had to be that dad. Or Eric Kennedy was responding to Vanessa. My son learned nothing and he didn't already know in his sex ed class. So apparently the education was happening.
Do you think if your husband was asked those questions, he would know the right answers?
Yes. He
Yeah,
better.
I think mine would too. Well, mine's kind of a biology guy, so he probably knows how my body works better than I know how it works. So I would like to think that he would get them right, but I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna lob some.
Be like, honey, what is a period? Yeah, no, I think my husband, I think he knows what it is. And I definitely think he understands that you can pee with a tampon in. Like, I think that's the most embarrassing question because it just goes to show, like, do you have any idea of a woman's anatomy? And Vanessa, this was the one that started off. My son graduated from high school 10 years ago. His sex ed was not nearly as comprehensive as what I received 38 years ago. Yeah, it's because why does sex have to be part of the school day? This is why, right? I mean, this is why, because people are making decisions about bodies that they just don't understand. I have a couple more races to talk about. New York. Hochul won. Governor Kathy Hochul, who took the place of Cuomo after he hugged and kissed people way too much. So she won her own kind of term. But this is what she said. She declared in an interview that New York will, quote, never be San Francisco, apparently pushing back against criticism that New Yorkers feel unsafe and fear that their city is becoming like San Francisco. I call BS. Are you telling me that New Yorkers are afraid that they're going to become San Francisco? I just don't think so. I mean, I think that's just a line that Hochul's giving to kind of jump on the criticism bandwagon. Crime happens all over the place, and New York has had its fair share of crime. Hochul shot back that New York would never be San Francisco, and when asked why, said the Big Apple was successfully fighting crime with homicides and shootings down dramatically from last year. So I don't know. I think that it's an unfair, cheap shot at San Francisco, in my opinion. I was encouraged that Brooke Jenkins won, and she won handedly, right? I mean, it wasn't even close, Kim. I'm forgetting her challenger's name, but Brooke Jenkins won as San Francisco DA.
Well, it's ranked choice voting, so they're stipulating all those ballots, but it looks like she's pretty far ahead.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because now again, forgive me with the ranked choice voting because I don't do it here in San Jose. Doesn't it just come in if you don't win like more than 50%? Isn't that how ranked choice voting works?
No. So they tabulate all of the people that ranked you number 1. And then they tabulate all the people that ranked you number 2 and all the people that ranked you number 3. And then so if someone gets more number 2s and number 3s, but you get more number 1s, I guess, technically they could outdo you because they got more people that were, it's weighted on what selection. Yeah, it's very interesting the way it works. But at this point, she's doing pretty well.
Okay. We'll follow it, I guess. We'll follow it. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, speaking of New York, also was reelected as a New York Congresswoman, easily defeating her Republican challenger, which is interesting because they were really, her challenger was Tina Forte, right-winger, promoted QAnon slogans. Okay. But they were really trying to sell Forte as someone that could really beat AOC, that her district was fed up with her and what have you. Again, AOC, another young congressperson. And we're going to see what the impact is of these younger people entering Congress and getting S done. Because on one hand, you have like Boeberts, right? I don't know how old Boebert is. I think she's like mid 30s. And now other people are obviously in their late 20s, so much younger. But still, sometimes it pays off and sometimes it just doesn't. All right, let's move on to Colorado. So magic mushrooms. Colorado voters appear to be split on Proposition 122. It's called the Access to Natural Psychedelic Substances. Now, according to the Denver Post, and I don't have their Secretary of State's website up, but it was, according to the Denver Post, about 51% of the vote was for Proposition 122. Now, a recount is triggered in an election if less than or equal to 0.5% of the winner's vote. If it is less than 0.5% of the winner's vote. So the measure seeks to legalize psilocybin and psilocin, two compounds found in magic mushrooms, for use in therapeutic settings and to pave the way for the establishment of quote unquote healing centers. Now, these healing centers would be where adults 21 years old and up can use the substances under the supervision of licensed professionals. Who would like that job? I mean, anyone want to sit in a room with a bunch of people on magic mushrooms?
On a bad trip?
Now, if we're talking about therapeutics, right, I would assume that there'd be either a psychologist or a therapist or someone kind of guiding them through the whole entire thing. How do you feel about that?
Well, I feel like there have been studies lately that have shown that such substances might have an effect on mental health. As far as if you are depressed, it can possibly affect that, where you wouldn't have to try to tinker with some daily medication that you took, that that psilocybin can be effective against depression and other mental health issues. The problem is that one study does not the truth make. And so what you have is mental health care professionals saying, wait a minute, before you do this, we need a lot more information. What this means, what the long-term effects are, and those studies haven't been done. So I think it's premature.
Yeah. So you wouldn't support something like this at this point?
I wouldn't. Not right now.
Yeah. You know, the only thing that gives me pause about whether it's, magic mushrooms or MDMA, ecstasy, is people, push against it because it has like kind of this party rave culture type of reputation. Okay. But at the same time, opioids are still being given out and all these other pharmaceuticals that maybe didn't initially have that reputation are being used and people are becoming so addicted to it. And we know how long it can take for certain substances. Let's look at marijuana, for instance, to get off of that like class 1 designation, right? A class 1, class A, something like that. Class 1, where there's no medical benefit for it, right? And so then there's no research into it. And so maybe with this happening in some of these states, we can get the research, we can get the answers, we can figure out a way in which if we're going to use these substances for therapeutics or medicinally, we have the science to back it up other than people just doing it on their own. I mean, go ahead and Google it. You can go down to other countries and do retreats that use magic mushrooms or something else to help you through either something that you're mentally going through or what have you. And I would feel safer if there was actual research behind it.
Yes, I was sneezing. I would also agree that we need to have some more research. Although, microdosing, Ricky Aubert one talks about microdosing and, people given smaller amounts and how you can't have a bad trip. That's fine. Microdosing is what it seems that they're doing in medical settings because some people that are offering such type of treatment in some states. And I don't know if it's necessarily legal, but they will, I think Mark Thompson interviewed someone who was talking about microdosing and different substances that could work. But again, I think you have to have more studies to really know whether this is a good idea or not. And until that happens, jump on the bandwagon saying, let's make all this stuff legal, and then we suffer the repercussions later on.
Yeah, I mean, I know because we see the repercussions of rampant drug use and flooding communities with things like opioids and we've seen fentanyl, while obviously illegal. What happens to communities that are overrun with that? Now, the Denver Post, of course, was having this article about it, and a lot of people were weighing in. This one person was kind of pushing back on the idea that this is just an experiment and we're kind of opening Pandora's box. They wrote mushrooms grow naturally, have been used for thousands of years. Modern psychiatric medications are experimental, as is big pharma medicine. Many of the medicines have not been thoroughly tested, and that's why there's so many lawsuits against big pharma companies these days. Some things are best left to doctors, but the ability to choose natural medicines is not one of those things. Nothing is perfect in this overly commercialized society we live in, but this will help a lot of people. So, we'll see what Colorado decides. What is it, Oregon? Is it Oregon that already has it legalized? Because magic mushrooms are legal, I know, in at least one state. And
Yeah, I think you're
so
right about Oregon. Yeah.
I think it's Oregon. Kind of staying on this being high tip. Apparently, half of dentists now say patients are showing up to their appointments high. 4 in 10 dental patients report using marijuana, and their dentists are noticing. They say that half of their patients are showing up high. This was according to a survey released by the American Dental Association. Did you know that if you show up high for your dentist appointment, you may have to have your services delayed? Apparently, they do not want to even fill cavities if people show up, let's say, with marijuana in their system. 5 states are considering ballot measures that would legalize marijuana. That could bring the total number of states with legal recreational marijuana to 24 plus Washington, D.C. Medical marijuana is legal in 37 states, including Washington, D.C. So among dentists, 56% said they limited treatment to patients who were high. 46% said they had to increase anesthesia during visits due to how drug use impacts patients' central nervous systems. That's interesting. I didn't realize that if you're stoned, on the pot, that they have to use more anesthesia. In my family, I don't have the gene, but my brother does, where he's highly sensitive to anesthesia. So it takes him forever to come out of it. When we were kids, I'll remember I was tongue-tied. Both of us were. And so if you don't know what tongue-tied is, the little tendon or whatever the hell connector from your tongue to the bottom of your mouth.
Sure.
It was very long. So I could only stick my tongue out like far, right? And they call it being tongue-tied. And so we had to go get a lasered cut when we were kids. And so we went and did it at the exact same time. And we had to go under, obviously. And I remember I popped right out. And I remember looking over and my brother was just out. Like he did not come out. And we eventually found out because my dad had a reaction to anesthesia. And so we all got tested. And it turned out that, yeah, you can have this gene that makes you really, really sensitive to anesthesia and not be able to come out as quickly. And obviously it's scary if you're not able to physically come out of anesthesia. But yeah, if you're on the butts, it could impact all that.
In my family, it's the opposite.
Oh.
Where my husband and daughter, it seems like it takes more anesthesia to affect them. So they'll give them numbing agents and they'll still feel everything. And then give them another shot of Novocaine and they still feel it. And a third shot. And it's like the fourth shot finally, where the dentist is like, I can't give you anymore. Like I've hit my limit with you. And there's still a little
the
bit,
tank is empty. There's nothing left in here. Sorry.
Yeah. They say, and I don't know if this is an old wives' tale or if there's any evidence to support it.
Okay.
They say that redheads are more sensitive to anesthesia. But in Julia's case, and she's a redhead, she's not as sensitive to it. So I don't know.
Ooh, okay. I mean, it's one of those things where if you need the anesthesia to work, you need it to work. I remember I always joke with one of my best friends. Of course, a drug that wouldn't work on her was the epidural. Like they gave her the epidural and it was not working. And she ended up feeling everything when she was
Oh,
giving birth. So you
no.
definitely don't want to be on the side of can you knock me out, and it's not working.
No.
And of course, there's a risk of giving you anesthesia. I mean, being under and things like that. So you want to make sure that it's working properly. But yeah, half a dentists say you guys are just smoking weed before you go and getting exactly. Kim writes in, I mean, if you aren't gonna drug me, I guess I'm gonna have to pregame and drug myself. Exactly. Ricky Aubert, of course, it's much better to have natural medicines banned. I think, Ricky had also written in regarding, or somebody was writing in regarding natural medicines. It's a good debate to have. I mean, where do our medicines come from? Where do they grow from? Um, if you look at it that way, there should be. Oh, it was CJ. Love you both, but sometimes you make me crazy. Wow, we need more Western studies. Generations of Native people actual experience is just not worth anything. It's a good point, CJ. It is. I mean, you know, these things come from somewhere, and unless it's tested and scientifically tested by Western medicine, we can kind of quickly poo-poo it, and maybe we shouldn't, because maybe a lot of the answers are right there. We have a couple of minutes. I do want to throw in Elon Musk. He has threatened a thermonuclear name and shame campaign against advertisers that are abandoning his platform. So apparently he was given kind of this talk for more than an hour on Twitter Spaces, which we've done before. More than 100,000 people listen live. He repeated that the company has not made any changes to its content moderation policies, but he said he believes requiring more people to pay to use Twitter through an $8 verification program would lower the amount of hate speech overall. He also is assuring advertisers that he noted their concerns about hate speech and misinformation, and that the platform would continue changing rapidly, and that some of the new features would fail. This is what he said. He said, if nothing else, I'm a technologist, and I can make technology go fast. If we do not try bold moves, how will we make great improvements? But do you try everything out on everyone at the exact same time? I mean, there's something called a soft opening or a slow rollout, or letting only certain people try it out. I mean, firing 75% of your workers, including those that were in charge of moderation, and then trying to backpedal in the moment, I don't think is going to work out for Twitter.
No.
He says we have to be tolerant of views we don't agree with, but those views don't need to be amplified. He said, at the end of the day, I am the chief twit here. So the responsibility is mine. If I make decisions that people don't like, then advertisers will leave the system, users will leave the system, and we will fail. But yeah, he's not going to shame a name anymore. But advertisers like Ford, GM, Volkswagen have pulled their Twitter ads. General Mills has pulled, the corporation behind Oreos, of course. Coca-Cola, American Express, Spotify, Fitbit, and a dozen other major corporations have advised their clients to suspend Twitter ad buys for now. And so Musk tweeted on Friday, the thermonuclear name and shame is exactly what will happen if this continues. I don't know. You don't want to push back on the advertisers. They are definitely your bread and butter. So maybe he'll be rethinking that as we move forward. Okay, so let me give a couple more shout outs to everybody in our live chats. Jorge Rivera with $10. We really appreciate you.
That's nice. Yeah.
Oh, I love this. I hope you can get the Roe versus Bros lady as your guest. I know already how the female body works because I self-taught myself sex ed by studying anatomy books in elementary school. Somebody else had put in the live chat that their sex ed at Catholic school was more comprehensive than what's given now. I don't know. I sent my daughter to Stanford University. They could do it like weekends, or you can go all day. I think we did the day long
Sure.
one. And they go into everything, but you have to reinforce all of that stuff. I mean, it is not something that you just give kids once and they're going to remember everything. That's not going to work. So thank you to everybody, though, that are participating in this show. We really, really appreciate you. Before we let you go,
Do we
click
have
that thumbs up. Mhm.
Do we have just a couple more seconds for an update on some races? San Jose Mayor.
please.
Right now, 91% of precincts reporting. We have Cindy Chavez with 48% of the vote and Mahan with 52% of the vote. So it is
Wow.
widening. It is 63,604 to 68,000 for him, 234.
Yeah. Oh,
The
wow. That's
Oakland
surprising.
mayor's race, it's ranked choice voting, but 100% of precincts are reporting in. It
Okay.
is Lauren Taylor with 34% of the vote. The next closest is Tao with 29%, De La Fuente with 13%. So it's really down to Tao and Taylor, and then Taylor looks like he's running away with it. Looking at San Francisco DA, again, ranked choice voting, 100% of precincts reporting in. Brooke Jenkins at 48% and Hamasaki with 34%, the next closest challenger. So
Okay.
it looks like she's got it. And I'm not sure what the threshold is for a runoff.
Yeah. I thought it was 50%. And if you don't, if I thought, and I could be wrong, and we'll research this for tomorrow as we continue to follow the races, but I thought if no candidate gets 50%, then that's why it goes to the runoff. That's what I thought. But then again, I don't have that much experience with ranked choice voting because I don't do it here.
It looks like Mayor Breed is already congratulating Brooke Jenkins and saying she looks forward to working with her. So, I think we're a go. It's a go.
All right. Well, it'd be really weird to get a whole nother DA, right? Let's let Brooke Jenkins do what she needs to do and see if we see some results. At least that's what I think. No longer driving into San Francisco, so I have 0 horses in that race, but I do love to visit. And I really do want it to clean up. All right. So again, help support the show by going to the NikkiMedoroShow.com. Links to our YouTube channels there. Again, thank you to everyone that's donated. Andreas, who always donates heavily to the show, $20 right there. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The Patreon links are there. Share with your family and your friends. And join us tomorrow. We'll continue to look at all of the races and see what they show us. So this is the Nikki Medoro Show on YouTube.
Nikki, you're all so awesome. You're proud, like a beautiful blossom. You're also the best. I really can't rest. You're all so awesome.
Wow. Okay.